Welcome to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where we share stories about folks that are mistaken for employees by irate customers. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story, police arrested Karen for assaulting me. The second story, I helped a sweet old lady get to the hospital and got a cake. The third story, I'm a deaf and dumb person, met a rude Karen. The first story is, arrest this juvenile menace. I was actually in basic EMT school, EMT 8. The way I accomplished dual enrollment was because my grades were good enough to prove I would graduate high school, as you have to be at least 18 years old to be an EMT in Georgia. My birthday's in January, and the school started on January 5th. EMT school at that time was a 6-month-long class 2 nights per week. Of course, I graduated high school, and the next week I graduate, and EMT and everything is going as planned, and did for the next 26 years. I just had awoke after my grand total 4 hours of sleep from my 24-hour shift of work. Need I even mention that I wanted to go home? But first I had to make a stop at People of Walmart store, as I'm 99% positive my local Wally World is where the title was coined from. Heck, while on shift we'd make stops in there after midnight just to see the finest of fine store patrons to have a contest, to see how many of our local city's finest was actually sober enough to stay between the aisles, without taking out the pyramids of canned goods at the end of each one. We even wanted to see just how many females could fit a pair of yoga pants on, and see just how many camel toes was possible in one pair of pants. I think 6 was the record. Sorry to sidetrack, however it's part of the story, in a way. I walked in the store still in full uniform. The uniform was easily confused with the police and security guards' uniform, as they were navy blue shirts with a badge, ID tag on a lanyard, French blue pants with navy stripes on the pants' legs, and duty-type work boots with zippers on the sides. We were often confused for police officers. I was on the dairy aisle with my buggy, getting some milk before heading from the back of the store to the front to finish my row-by-row shopping method. I got my milk and was about to push my cart on to the next stop, the ice cream freezer. Then the expectedly unexpected, if that makes sense, occurs. The start of the Queen Karen of Blue Hair story is like this. Now, before she made it to my aisle, I have to admit, I did hear some arguing the next aisle over, and muffled yet still audible speech about get me that bag off the top shelf. Then in a more demanding, I told you just simply get that bag for me. And you get, and I'm not asking so nicely again. Now what sounded like 2 younger boys mentioned to one another, who does this old geezer think she is? Then a response from the other boy, have these blue hairs forgotten how to ask? Yeah bro, all the old B had to do was ask. I suppose they intentionally said it loud enough for her to hear, and here we go y'all. Forgive me, as I usually type with a southern drawl, as well being from a very rural area of the West Georgia area. I hear none other than the Karen, Karen, Karen of the Walmart I demand that you help me theme song in my mind. Those people too young to know who Georgia the Jungle is, please look it up, as the theme song aren't a parody of the song. You there. There were several others around me, so I thought nothing of it and continued shopping. Again, as I stopped to get eggs, she says again, are you ignoring me or just ignorant? I need your immediate assistance. I looked around and had to ask, are you speaking to me? She says in a condescending voice, well, you are the only security guard I see here. So, yes, I am talking to you, and I need you to stop pretending like you're shopping and kick these juvenile delinquents out of this store. I reply as tactfully as a tired man just trying to get the heck in, get my items and get out. You can't be shopping. You're the security guard on duty, so quit playing and get those obnoxious and rude children out of this store. I told her again, ma'am, I'm trying to it. Karen says, you either help me, you lying B, or I will have you fired and banned from any job in security you'll ever. Things went downhill as rapidly as Clinton's pants under the Oval Office desk from here on out. My sleep-deprived and normally calm and cool and collected demeanor was spent. I'd had enough. My parents have never spoken to me this way, and I was actually taught not to do what I was about to do, so forgive me, Mom and Dad. I told her with my deep, resonant daddy voice, as my wife calls it, I do not work here, woman. I've tried on 3 prior occasions, but you keep running your mouth and never allow me to. She attempts to interrupt, but I stop her. She starts with, no, you wait. I throw a hand up right about 6 inches from her face and say, see, there you go again. I suppose you were going to say you've never been spoken, so consider this is the first truth that others have been too afraid to do. Again, I do not work here. I just got off my 24 hours and drove 35 minutes here from a long night of dealing with Karens with far more issues than the issue you want me to assist you with. And I'll be deed if I'm going to put up with it from you for free. I barely get paid enough to deal with it while on duty. Why don't you find an actual security guard here? I'm a medical professional. You have them assist you with whatever relevant cause you have in your twisted panties at the present time. Now leave me the hell alone. I want to go home." I left her pale as a sheet and made it far enough away she had to yell back, "You just go ahead and leave and never think about coming back. I know the manager, and he finds out there'll be hell to pay." Now between the time hell and pay were spoken, I was struck with a small bag of powdered sugar that hit me and exploded all over my uniform. I have to admit, that was one heck of a shot from one end of the aisle to the other. It didn't hurt, just made one hell of a mess. The manager now has heard of what was going on and asked me what happened. Karen saw him approach and came down the aisle like Bruce Jenner. Not the confused Caitlin, but the fast, athletic one we got used to seeing our Wheaties in Olympic triathlon champion boxes, and immediately tried to butt into the conversation the manager and I had started. She would get her turn. The manager told her we're talking and he would get her chance. Karen went ballistic. "You are already taking his side. He assaulted me, as well as the two other hoodlums that harassed and made fun of me for being old, when all I wanted was help. Now your security guy was very rude to me, and I demand that he's fired and never gets a job in security again." The manager let her speak, and we did not interrupt, and then I gave my side of the story. I pretty much told him everything I overheard that later today to the boys, and then how she began to be so rude to me, even after I told her multiple times, or tried to when I can get a word in edgewise, that I didn't even work here. I told him he may want to check the security footage, because if she touched those young boys in any way as well as her hitting me with the powdered sugar, that I want assault charges pressed upon her. By this time, she's trying to make her way out of the store, but the manager radioed the true security and had them stop her until law enforcement could arrive. When I made it to the front and she was being put in handcuffs, she was still crying, and with her quivering voice was still being Karen when she yelled to me, "My husband is your local megachurch pastor, and I promise you, he'll make sure all of you rude liars burn in hell," after the way she was treated. Labor to say I'm a Christian, and I know that I'm saved by grace through Jesus Christ, and there's nothing her husband can do to have that taken away from me. However, is it not in God's word that those that bear false witness have broken at least one of the 10 commandments? Not only that, well, that doesn't take him but the day she goes for before a secular judge and see how many of those 10 commandments are commuting into years. The second story is, it's not a taxi, but I'll take the cake. This happened in the early 2000s, 02 or 03. A small background is needed. At that point in my life, I'm a third-year nurse student in the capital. I'm sharing my apartment with a good friend, and he's sharing his car. The alleged car was the major factor of the story. It was a brand cherished by taxi drivers and also yellow, the color of taxis in the capital. The major difference from a taxi were the lack of the taxi sign, and that it was a hatchback. Taxis are sedans. It was common for someone to flag us down thinking it was a taxi, until we came closer. Anyway, it was summer, and my friend was island hopping with his fiancée and had left the car behind. I had woken up to an almost empty fridge, and since I was paid the day before, I decided to forego the small convenience store in my neighborhood and drive to the big supermarket. I jumped in the car and took a major road artery to the store. I'm stopped in front of a bus stop, waiting for the light to turn green, when the back door opens and closes, and hear a woman's voice saying the name of a hospital. I turn around to say it's not a taxi, but I'm stopped in my tracks. A sweet old lady had entered the car. She was around 65 to 70. She's clutching her purse so hard her knuckles are turning white. She's clearly panicked. She keeps mumbling, "Please hurry. She went into labor, please hurry." I put the car into gear and start driving towards the hospital. Nurse training kicks in and I start to talk to her to calm her down. She starts to calm down and I get the whole story. Her granddaughter, 19 at the time, was pregnant and had a rough pregnancy. An hour ago went into premature labor, and the grandma was panicking. We reached the hospital 20 minutes later. The guard at the entrance knows me because of hospital rotation. I drive up to the entrance and drop her. As she's trying to pay me, I tell her it's on the house. At that point, she realized it wasn't a taxi and got a bit embarrassed and tried to give me money again. I advised that if everything went well, send me a cake. Little did I know. 2 weeks later, my roommate is back and received a call from the police. They wanted to find out if he was the owner of the car and if he could go to the station. My roommate asked me if anything had happened with the car while he was gone. I said no, having almost forgotten the incident. I decided to tag along and go to the station. We're met by an officer who guides us to an office. Inside is this sweet old lady with a box. She jumps up shouting, "That's him," and hugs me. The officer is smiling. He's the father of the granddaughter and now proud grandfather. Apparently the lady told him about the incident and how helpful I was. He used his status as a police officer to get the plate from the CCTV and find the owner and thank me. The baby girl would have to spend some time in the hospital due to being almost 2 months early, but otherwise all right. So I got the cake. On a final note, I met the girl by coincidence a couple of years ago. She's turned out fine and is studying to be a nurse. The last story is, Karen slapped and pushed me because I was ignoring her and not helping. I'm an 18-year-old male, born completely deaf and mute. Also, I'm partially blind in my left eye. I live with my sister, 28 female, who had been taking care of me since our parents died. Recently, she got married and went on her honeymoon, so I'm on my own for a few weeks. There was a new supermarket opened in our area, and I needed some items, so decided to go there and grab them. My bad for wearing a red-colored shirt almost similar to the employees working there, but if you look closely, you could see that it was not the uniform. I was at the electronics section looking for some batteries when I see an old man struggling to get some DVDs at the top shelf. Since I'm tall, I helped him. He thanked me. I can do lip reading, and went on his way. Then I began looking for the batteries. That's when I felt someone grab my left wrist. I turned around and a woman in her late 40s slapped me. She was speaking something, but I couldn't follow her lips as she had spoke too fast. However, I was able to catch some words like you, ignore, job, etc. So I signed to her that I'm deaf. Apparently this was a wrong move, because she became more irate towards the signs. Luckily, by this time a store employee came to see what the commotion was about. He saw me on the ground and helped me up. Then he asked me what happened. Before I could sign to him, Karen starts to yell at the employee. I don't know what she said as she was not facing me. After she finished, I signed to the employee that I can't hear her speak. Fortunately, he understood and explained this to the lady, but she's still not convinced. She tries to assault me again, but I moved away. Then I wrote and showed the employee to call the cops on her. The employee nodded and called the cops. Karen tried to run away, but the security caught her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes. They first talked to the employee who explained the situation, about how Karen assaulted me because she mistook me for a store employee. One police officer comes and speaks to me. I understood that he wanted my version of events, so I wrote everything down and showed it to the officer. Then they went to check the CCTV footage. Then came back and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I gladly said yes. Karen was then placed in handcuffs and given a free ride at the back of a police cruiser. The manager then explained to me that Karen thought I worked there, and she became angry that I ignored her. She had been standing on my left side, so obviously I couldn't see her. The store manager then offered me a 50% discount on the products. I texted my sister about the events that happened, and she was livid. Oh, did I mention that my sister is a lawyer? She told me that she herself will be handling the case, and would see to it that Karen would get the maximum time. I hope you love these stories. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when the new video comes out.